But are these the only ways new genes can form from pre-existing ones? For the longest time, the answer was thought to be yes. The first genes were thought to have formed before DNA and proteins were used by organisms, and from then on it was simply duplication, mutation, and rearrangement. That is, until a study came along in 2006 by Yuki Hayashi and colleagues. In this remarkable study, this group of scientists showed what many biologists thought was so improbable it was essentially impossible: the evolution of entirely new genes from completely random DNA sequences. The exact thing creationists have been arguing is mathematically impossible. In this study, the researchers replaced a 139 amino acid domain of a gene that makes up the coat of a virus with a random DNA sequence. Without this protein domain, the virus is extremely inefficient at infecting cells. And if creationist math is to be believed, the chances of these 139 amino acids randomly mutating back is so unlikely, the virus will be doomed forever. However, in only 7 generations, the group saw a 240-fold increase in infectivity of the virus. And after many generations, the virus had increased its infection rate by a factor of 17,000. Where once there was just random DNA, now existed a fully functional viral coat gene. But not the original gene. An entirely new gene had evolved to fill the role. What this group showed was that not only could entirely different proteins perform the same job, but these could evolve rapidly, starting from completely random stretches of DNA. If a random stretch of DNA through a fortuitous mutation happens to be transcribed by RNA polymerase, the resulting protein will most likely do extremely little. But if the little it does happens to help the cell, even just a bit, that new gene will be selected for, and over many generations through gradual mutations, that originally random stretch of DNA will evolve into a fully functional and completely novel gene. The creationist argument simply shows that a single specific amino acid sequence will not spontaneously form by chance. This, however, does not mean new genes don't evolve. Novel genes originate through a variety of mechanisms and are refined through random mutation and natural selection, all the while increasing the complexity of the organism and adding information to the genome. More often than not, organisms don't reinvent the wheel and use pre-existing genes or domains to form new genes. But every now and then, a completely new gene forms from nothing more than random DNA, adding more raw fuel to the engine of life we call evolution.
Moving right along.
I'd like to find some animal that's not of its own kind, other than the speciation thing.
As with any slow gradual process, we need a very large timescale to see any noticeable change. For example, if you sat and watched the person fill up the sandbox for 5 minutes, it's not going to look like they're ever going to really fill up the sandbox. However, if you sit there for days as they fill it up, eventually you are going to see the macroscopic change of the sand filling up to a certain noticeable depth. The same can be said for evolution. To illustrate this, let's use a function graphed in the xy plane. Here we see a straight line. Let's let the curvature of the line represent the amount of change. In this visible timescale that is analogous to the time humans have existed, there is essentially no curvature, no change in the organism. However, when we zoom out to a larger viewing window, we can begin to see minor curvature. This is the exact same effect as taking a picture of the horizon on the surface of the Earth versus taking the same picture in orbit of Earth. So again, in this larger viewing window, we begin to see minor curvature. If we zoom out again to an even larger viewing window, we see major curvature, and if we zoom out one more time, we can see that this is actually a semicircle that goes 180 degrees around. The problem with asking for a monkey that gives birth to a human, or generally having one kind transition into another in our visible timescale, is that you're asking to see the amount of change that takes place in a large viewing window of millions of years in a single generation. So in conclusion on macro versus microevolution and seeing one kind change into another, organisms reproduce with variation in environments that favor the survival of certain individuals over others. This is the heart of microevolution. Given that mutations can be beneficial, that new information can be added, and that it doesn't violate the second law of thermodynamics. Now fast forward the process over hundreds of millions of years.
And now scrolls clock forward over a few million years. How much do you think these differences can accrue?
Yeah, but all you need is an overactive imagination to believe in evolution.
Which aspect of this do you contest?
Before it was that no new information could be added, that mutations are always harmful, that we've never seen the production of a different kind of animal, and that it violates thermodynamics. All of which I've shown are not barriers to macroevolution.
All you need is an overactive imagination to believe in evolution.
Does it require an overactive imagination to believe in atoms? After all, we've never seen them, and after the Rutherford experiment, that's the one with the gold foil and the alpha particle radiation, didn't Rutherford just make up out of his mind that atoms have small positively charged nuclei with negatively charged electrons around them? It takes a logical mechanism and positive evidence in favor of that mechanism to believe in something that we cannot observe. Natural selection is the logical mechanism. Atavisms, vestigial organs, and pseudogenes are the positive evidence. And believing in a 2,000-year-old magical zombie who is his own father, who demands that you symbolically devour his flesh and blood and telepathically tell him that he is your master, so he will reconnect your consciousness with him so you're happy when you die, doesn't require an overactive imagination?
They give godlike properties to time, space, and matter.
Like what? None related to biological evolution, so what's left?
Properties to time, space, and matter, and give them the ability to create the universe,
Didn't you previously say that scientists thought the universe was created out of time and nothing? Oh well, look who I'm asking to be consistent here. As for the origin of the universe, there is no consensus on how it began. The Big Bang Theory describes the development of the universe since 10 to the minus 43 seconds after time began. Before that, we just don't know what happens. To my knowledge, the math breaks down, you get some divide by zeros, and it's all crazy like that. But the point is that before that, we just don't know. Meaning we do not know what the original cause was. The difference here is between describing how something happens and explaining how something happens. For example, the Big Bang Theory describes how the universe came into being, but it does not explain how. It doesn't have the cause. Similarly, the Tree of Life describes how life diversified, but it doesn't say why it did. Natural selection, however, explains the diversity of life. It offers a mechanism by which this occurred. In the same way, the Big Bang Theory describes how the universe came to be, but it does not explain how the universe came to be, nor do we know what the original cause was.
the ability to create the universe and life itself.
Abiogenesis is an emerging field of study, not established scientific theory. Not that that matters anyway, because it's not part of evolution.
Number 2, it calls for faith in scores of things that have never been observed.
That's right, just like we've never seen atomic nuclei fuse or break apart, so there's no reason to believe it actually happens.
Things like life coming from non-life, matter creating itself, and animals producing different kinds of animals. Members that are no longer in good standing are always excommunicated. If you don't believe in the theory anymore, you are excommunicated.
And what is your source on this, Eric? You're not a scientist. You don't do anything in the field of biology or peer review. Where are you getting this information from exactly? From your research team? From your own intuitive sense of what science is? My guess is that you've been watching Ben Stein's Expelled too much. None of the people in the video were fired or demoted because they rejected evolution. In fact, if you have a minute and you still feel too lazy to do research, look up Expelled, Debunked, Flunked to find a 16-part series that goes through the entire movie explaining exactly why these people were not demoted or fired simply for their rejection of evolution. For some of them, their job position was tentative to begin with, while others were teaching intelligent design before it had earned its merits.
And it's only the members that are in good standing that are worthy of any kind of judgment.
Out in the real world, it's akin to not accepting heliocentricity as an astronomer or relativity as a theoretical physicist. The fact that a biologist doesn't accept the theory of evolution is a testament to their ability to reason and analyze facts. The same thing would happen in a nuclear physics lab if a physicist rejected atomic theory with little to no basis.
It also attempts to provide the basic answers to life, answers to those questions. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going to go when I die?
You can take whatever spin on it you want, but the only thing it tries to answer is, why does life exist as it does today? However, for a full response to those questions, please watch my video, What Does Evolution Mean to Eric Hovind?
And it deifies nature itself.
No it doesn't.
Is evolution a religion? Yes, it is.
Yeah, and elephants are microwaves.